I'm going to show you how to do a double crochet. The abbreviation for double crochet is DC, and the symbol for double crochet looks like this. I'm using US crochet terminology. In the UK, this would be called a treble crochet. I've worked a foundation chain to begin. This foundation chain has 8 chains, but you can begin with any number. I'm starting in a neutral position. The hook is held in my dominant hand. For right-handers, that means you're holding it in your right hand. If you're left-handed, you're holding it in your left hand. The working yarn is coming over the index finger from back to front, and then it's tensioned through the fingers in whatever way is comfortable for you. Some people work it around their pinky finger or whatever. I like to weave it through my fingers like this. So just hang on to that yarn however you can tension it. The thumb and the middle finger of my non-dominant hand, that is the hand that's holding the yarn, is controlling what's coming off the hook here. So I can actually pinch this and let go if I need to. But I'll move my fingers up close to the hook each time, so I have control over what's going on. Finally, in the neutral position, the hook face is facing me, so the open part of the hook is facing me. The first double crochet goes into the 4th chain from the hook. So counting backwards from the hook, I do not count the loop that's on the hook. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's my 4th chain. To start a double crochet, I work a yarn over. Means push back to create a yarn over. Once I've done that yarn over, the yarn is going over my hook from upper right to lower left if I'm right-handed, or from upper left to lower right if I'm left-handed. So I'm going to yarn over and then insert my hook into the chain. I want to put it just above that bottom loop of the chain, so when I go all the way through, you can see I have 2 loops on the top of my hook. Now I'm going to yarn over again and pull a loop through that chain. Now I have 3 loops on my hook. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. I twist the hook, rotate the hook so the face is down to pull through those 2 loops, and then come back to my neutral position. So I'm part way through with that double crochet. Then yarn over again, rotate my hook down to be able to pull it through the last 2 loops. So there I have completed a double crochet, and I have a turning chain here. I'm going to talk about the turning chain in just a minute. Let's do another double crochet, starting with my neutral position, yarn over, go into the next chain, yarn over again, and pull up a loop, then yarn over, pull through 2, and each time I'm resetting to this neutral position, then yarn over and pull through 2. I'm letting the yarn go through my fingers, and I'm using my thumb and middle finger of my non-dominant hand to move back and forth to help control what's happening with that loop. Let's do another one. Yarn over, insert the hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, then yarn over and pull through 2 more loops. I'm going to do that in every chain across. So I have 2 more chains left. On the last double crochet, I've worked into every chain. I still have a little knot here. That's my slip knot. I do not work into that slip knot. Here I've completed my first row of double crochets. Let's count those. You can count either the V at the top of the stitch, or you can count the posts. I'm going to count the posts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus my turning chain. The turning chain is pretty big. Remember those 3 chains that we skipped? Those were our turning chain, and I'm going to consider those a double crochet. So I'm going to count those 3 as a stitch. They've magically become a double crochet. That will be important in just a minute. So we started with 8 chains, but we actually have 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double crochets plus the turning chain, which counts as a stitch. Now it's time to turn and work the second row, and the second row is actually easier because we're going to be working under the V's. See those V's at the top of the double crochet? That's where I'm going to be putting my hook. I'm going to turn, but I have to get my hook up to the level of the next row. Remember that stitches are made under the hook. So my hook was at the top of the row and I was creating the stitch under the hook. So to get my hook up to the level of the top of the next row, I need to chain. I'm going to chain 3. There are other ways to do this, but for now we're just going to go with the basics of chaining 3. Remember how to chain. 1, 2, 3. That's a pretty big chain, and I'm going to consider that chain a double crochet. I'm going to say it has magically become a double crochet. I'm going to count it as a stitch. And I'm going to go ahead and put a marker in that top chain to help me find the top of the chain later. Remember, the loop on the hook does not count as a stitch, so the top chain is this chain here. Now, because this chain 3 is counting as a stitch, if I put a stitch right here in the base of that chain, I will increase. I don't want to increase right now. I just want to maintain the same number of stitches. So I'm going to put my first double crochet in this next stitch, not in the base of the chain, but in the next stitch, because I don't want to increase. So to do a double crochet, yarn over, go under both loops of that stitch, going into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So there I have my turning chain, which counts as a stitch, and a double crochet. I'm going to double crochet in each stitch across. Here I've been working across the row, and here is my last V. It's been pretty easy to see where those stitches are because it looks like a V as I work across. So I'm going to work into this last V and do a double crochet, but I'm not quite finished yet. Remember, I had 6 stitches across the row. If I count, I can see I only have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means I need to work this last stitch into the top of this turning chain. That's not quite as easy to do. So I'm going to have to dig in here a little bit. I still want to work under 2 loops. So I've got 2 loops on top of my hook when I do that last double crochet. And I'll stop and count and make sure that I'm still maintaining the same number of stitches across. I'll do one more row to show you how to keep track of your stitches using these markers. I have to chain 3 to bring my hook up. It's called a turning chain or build-up chain. I've brought it up to the level of my next row so I can make those stitches underneath. I'm going to put another marker in the top chain here and double crochet in each stitch across. Again, I'm going to skip this stitch because I've made my double crochet, my magical chain that becomes a double crochet. So I'm going to work into the next stitch in the row. When I reach the end of the row, now I've worked into those V's, which are easy, but now I've come to this chain, that turning chain that counts as a stitch. But look, here's a marker that reminds me that I need to work into that chain. So that marker is going, hey, 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 put a stitch here. I can see that now. I'm going to actually remove the marker for just a moment while I put my hook in here, get the marker out of the way. Complete my double crochet. Count my stitches again to see that I do still have 6 stitches. Chain 3 and turn, or turn and chain 3, doesn't really matter. And replace my marker. So if I replace the marker each time, I will have that reminder to work into the chain, and I'll be able to maintain the same number of stitches throughout. There may be times you don't want to count the chain 3 turning chain as a stitch. So I'm going to show you the same example now, not counting the turning chain as a stitch. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chains, just as I did before. I'm going to put the first double crochet into the 4th chain from hook and work my double crochet. And then double crochet in each chain across as I did before. The last double crochet goes into the last chain, and I'm going to stop and count. In this case, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double crochets and a turning chain, but I am not counting that turning chain as a stitch. So I just have 5 stitches. I'll turn and chain 3. Again, there are different ways to do your turning chain. You can chain 1, you can chain 2, you can chain 3, and so on. But the most common way right now is to chain 3. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. Now, this is not going to count as a stitch. We're going to ignore that chain 3. That means we have to put the first stitch of the row in this first V, the very top of my double crochet. So I'm going to double crochet right there in that top of that stitch. And then in each stitch across, and you can see that it's a nice tidy V that you can work those stitches into. At the end of the row, I have one more stitch, one more V to work into. But I'm going to ignore that chain. So I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches left. And you can see the chain kind of pokes out the side. That's okay. Often you're doing a seam or some sort of edging where you can kind of cover that up. But it does create a little bit more of a scalloped edge, which may be a look you like, or there may be other reasons for not counting that turning chain as a stitch. If you'd like more instruction like this, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check out the links in the video notes for more ways you can find me. Thanks for watching.